Absolutely. Good morning and welcome. Talanoa, we have Jerome Mika. So such a special show today, and we're really honoured to have you on Talanoa Live. Jerome Mika is the spokesperson for the Mangere Church cluster. If that's one label we might put on it. We'll let you give us the correct name, which I think is the Assembly of God Church of Samoa, or Samoan Church. But works for the Cause Collective, and also amongst the team is the South Seas group. So this is Talanoa Live, a special series of Yarn Live, and it's all about a future with COVID. So of course today we're going to be looking at a very sensitive matter for New Zealand, and of course this community that has not only been affected by COVID, but by some of the events surrounding that. So with that, I'd like to ask you, Jerome, to introduce yourself, and then we'll get on with finding out all about what's happening.
Talanoa, Ronan, thank you for the opportunity to be on your show this morning. Malolei, Tonga Language Week, and also Tēnā koutou katoa, Māori Language Month, and really appreciate the opportunity just to share some insights, but also just have a general discussion around what's happening. In the last couple of weeks, it's been a bit of a been quite relentless in terms of what's been happening within the AOG Church of Samoa church community, and it's been also a real sort of joy for me to be able to be there with our church community just to support them and also just work through the last few weeks. A lot of this, for us, it's being able to share the experiences, but also having an opportunity to have discussions with you, Ryan. So thanks again for the opportunity.
Yes, no, I'm very honoured to have you here. It's such an important thing for New Zealand, I think, to understand from the inside, as we say. And yes, thank you. After talking about it before we came on, I completely missed in my intro to mention that it's both Tongan Language Week, Malolei, and Māori Language Month. So, yeah, respectfully raise and mention those with obviously Malolei and Kia ora. So what I'd like to get you to do is to kick off, Jerome, and give us what we refer to in these sessions as a 5-minute rundown. Another aspect I just wanted to before I get into there is the name, obviously, Talanoa Live, a very important word of the Pacific, and was shared to me, actually known it for a few years amongst the different parts of languages I know, but is re-raised again by Sir Ian Taylor, and beautifully meaning of to listen and share with respect. So for all of New Zealand, and especially that element that we hope to reach and give insights to that will help them understand the realities of what you're facing. It's all about listening and sharing with respect. But please, if you could kick off and give us your 5-minute focus, or what you'd like to share with everybody around the situation that you're helping work with, that'd be great.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Ronan. Yeah, I'd like to start off from the beginning, and just remembering the church when they had the church service on the 14th of August. We didn't know that there was a variant in the community, and it could have been any event, it could have been a sports event, it could have been another church event, but it was the combine service that the Samoan Church of Samoa, AOG, had. And one of the things that I've seen on this is when we went into lockdown on the 18th of August, it's just been a relentless exercise for the church. It's been also a very trialing time for them very early on, but as we've gone through just the last few weeks, I've felt the unity, but also the strength from the majority of Aotearoa or New Zealand, and it's been really, really encouraging for them, because what they can see is they've done their part to be able to cooperate with our, just with public health authorities and that as well. So it's been good for us to just work it through. But early on, it was quite overwhelming and quite stressful for the church community, working from having a discussion with our whaletua, Rebecca Tulepoa, who has been the backbone of this exercise. One of the things that she had sort of taken on board very early on, just the issues that were sort of being raised on media, and we had spoken to myself and Brother D, Mateus Matane and Molianga. We worked with her to just see how can we support our church community, but also how can we get and express their views and what they're wanting the public understand. And one of the things that they wanted to really outline and also express through that was the importance of being able to cooperate and also just work with our public officials. But the uncertainty, when we went into lockdown level 4, there was a lot of people that didn't understand what had happened in terms of the severity, the scale, but also just the harshness of the Delta variant and how quickly it spread. We had a church service, estimated 500 people there, 27 different churches from around Auckland, and also a guest speaker from Wellington. All of that there really was only probably a 3 or 4 hour service, but the way that it spread in the community, but also just the widespread, but because it wasn't only one church. What we really found encouraging and also just heartening from our church community is until Rebecca till that forward, just updating all the Facebook lives every day to tell everyone to get tested. Even working through with our leader, Reverend Ferretti till that forward, to be able to just reassure people that it was important to get tested. It was important to just stay and cooperate with our health officials, but also if they had any issues around English second language or services or social services, to be able to reach out to the Cause Collective, and also being, really driven, really quite hard by the South Seas Healthcare. So through this whole exercise, it has been quite full on. We haven't had any sort of time to be able to rest, but for us, it's not even about getting alongside as a job. It's been about how do we help represent and also support our church community. So that's just a bit of an overview of the last few weeks, but it's been a bit of a groundhog because when I wake up, it's the same thing and I don't know what day it is. It's just been quite full on for me, and also just working with our team. And I'd like to acknowledge our CEO, Lofa Lui, who's just been supportive of me through the Cause Collective and our team, but also Lembalu Silao Sefo, who, as like myself, we just sort of wake up, see what we can do to serve and support our community, but also just trying to get things out. It's starting to really hit home, especially around social services and some of the issues with food. But we're working through that process. But it's a brief overview, Ashton, in terms of some of the work that in terms of the work that we're going through.
Yes. So it sounds like the comment when you say it's like Groundhog Day, I can imagine, because the amount of, I guess, pressure from the day one going through of ensuring the safety of the community in the sense of enabling them to get tested and enabling them to be communicated. So there's been some commentary. I don't know. Well, let's start off with the Cause Collective in South Seas. So you work for the Cause Collective. Could you give us a little bit of a picture of what the Cause Collective is, what it does, and how it got involved in this group and doing what you're doing?
Yeah, so the Cause Collective is a social change agency, and a lot of it's about changing social determinants within South Auckland. What we've seen in the Cause Collective is it's 240,000 within our an area in South Auckland that's 819 population, 120,000 of them are Pacific people. And the Cause Collective work across a number of offerings, whether it be the youth, whether it be our One Love community, also working through alcohol reform. We've got a lot of things, but it is about being able to empower community. We also work with we've got a Reverend Sam who works within the Cause Collective. He runs our church ministry, which is about facilitating and working with our church ministers, around 15 to 20. And we've been doing this since actually about March to be able to just equip and raise the awareness with our church ministers around vaccine and the importance of getting vaccinated. So what we've done is our leadership is Rachel and also who is currently on leave, and we've got Lofa Lui Boy, who is our acting CEO at the moment. But it's been a great team to be able to work through. But first and foremost, I'm part of this whole thing with AOG. I am a son of a preacher man. My father is a Samoan AOG. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to be able to pull alongside our church community to support them through this very difficult time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for sharing about Cause Collective and your personal connection to the group. Before we get to South Seas, I'm I'm obviously not Polynesian. I'm Pākehā. So the question for me is the church community is probably the community that joins the Polynesian community together the most, I would imagine. So it's quite a, if you talk about, was it 27 churches that came together, and about 500 people. So, that's quite a powerful collection of people together coming together. So the working with the ministers, or should I refer them as reverends?
The reverends, yep.
Reverends, yeah. I thought I had the wrong word with ministers. So working with the reverends is really important in terms of being able to communicate to the broader church community and getting everyone informed. Is that probably a fair understanding?
Yeah, so what happened from like the 18th of August is the leader of the church, his name is Reverend Pariti would actually send out through Facebook a private page of their church, just reinforcing the messages about this is coming through our church service, this is what we need to do, as well as just continue to pray. And they did do fasting every Wednesday to be able to support and offer some of our church members. But in the background has been his wife, or the whaletua of the church community, which is Rebecca. And Rebecca has been ringing all the church ministers, ringing youth. And then they also formed a CMT, crisis management team within the church. There's about 10 of them, 2 in each region. What they've found is they've got their west region, they've got their east, central and south, and they've had 2 reps that have been able to represent all those parts of the church. And through that, we've been able to just gather information and insights from our church community, especially it's a span of around 1,200 people. So even being able to get down to the detail of family by family, and then also how many members in the family. When we were giving out food parcels, like around the 20th of August, we had families of up to 9, 10 that were coming to us. So we knew that if it was one person that had COVID, then it was most likely that whole family were trying to isolate. But what we found is in most cases, all the families started to sort of catch it from COVID.
Yeah, so that's been a theme that's come through in the 1 p.m. announcements, almost sort of assuring people that, if one person in a household has it, because it's Delta, because it's much more virulent, it's a given from the Ministry of Health's perspective that even with isolation within the house, everyone in the house is expected to get it. So they're looking at it that way, rather than thinking that with isolation, that one person will be the only one with it. They're expecting that everyone will get that. So, I guess the practicalities of contact tracing in that case, because now you've got not just 1, but up to 10 people, they've even got to work out where they've been and then contact those people. So I think I saw one of the articles that talked about 200 additional call center staff that spoke Polynesian languages. I don't know if it was specifically Samoan, but there's definitely mention of it in the article. But that was one of the things that had been put in place, I think, by the ministry with Datacom. But I assume you would have had visibility and connected to this picture, and you can perhaps tell us more about it.
Yeah, so South Seas Healthcare has been a really important. So one of the sort of sayings that Minister Opito had sort of said from the beginning is which means some of the problems we would still be the solution in terms of Pacific, and the Pacific provider South Seas have been not only in terms of being able to help the health of our families and be able to respond immediately, but they've also been part of the social care for the community. And it's been really difficult, but what we've found is Le Malusi Sefo has been really, really receptive to being able to find out what are we needing in terms of immediate needs, but also just being able to put in place to work with the crisis management team from the church to be able to fill in the void, and also the uncertainty that was happening within the family and also the churches at the time. And that's been really important for us. It's been able to tighten up all the processes, the efficiency of turning over, because when someone puts in a request for food, you've got to make sure that it's there the same day, not 2 or 3 days later. Because if they are isolating, then some families weren't able to go out and shop and be able to get food, and the necessities of life. So we were getting all sorts of scenarios where people were asking for food and essentials to help sort of work through because they couldn't go out into the community.
Yes. So I'm just thinking before I was just going to ask for you to give us a run through of all the different elements, but before we do that, perhaps one of the other ones is, if I'm not wrong, I saw in the news that was it testing was set up at the church, so a testing station. I think there's a good shot of everyone in their PPE gear and a range of the members coming through. But tell us about the testing station and the setup there, because I think the important message here is that testing within the community is like the highest amount of testing across any part of New Zealand. So it's a very successful result in what's being done.
Yeah, some of the messages we heard out in the media was that the church was uncooperative and non-responsive. And what we felt was important for us was not only so that we are, but also do it in a very united way to be able to front through. So we had Zooms with all the church ministers and spoke, how do we best get everyone tested? Because everyone's right across Auckland. We don't know if the health officials have got the data match on who was at the service, who wasn't. And so they made they made a decision through Zoom to be able to bring everyone together. And it was held at the Manukau Magpies Rugby League. And we worked with the South Seas that set up that pop-up also with us to be able to bring all the church community together. And that was a show of strength because we had people lining up. It opened at 8:30. We had people lining up at 7:30. And also just being able to work through until 4:30. Not only did we give them testing, work through just to kind of check off all the church members that were there and weren't there, but we were able to also offer support with the food parcels. I'd also like to acknowledge Sir Michael Jones, who was, we ran out of food like in the second half of that day, and he was able to come in with his team from the Village Trust and be able to bring additional food. But when we ran that testing station, it was a statement showing that we are united. We want to help out. We want to cooperate with health officials. Because with the uncertainty, not only with Aotearoa, but in the community, they didn't want to be seen as the weak link in terms of being able to eliminate COVID.
Yeah. Well, look, I want to offer thanks personally myself, because I didn't actually see the bit of the news about them saying the church wasn't responsive. I just saw the positive stuff, that this testing station had been set up. So kudos to you and the team and the community, because I think it's if we think about it really, everybody wants to be safe and do the right thing. So of course, everyone is, and good on you for showing them that that's the reality of what's happening down there. Because I mean, who would really not want to support everyone being safe, right? So good stuff there, and great to hear Michael Jones helping out on the food front. So you almost sort of gave us a bit of a run through there, and I was just going to ask if you could give us a bit of almost like a picture of a bit of a run through. So we set up the station at the church, and through that people come through, do their testing. We'd get them we'd work out who needs to go and isolate, and therefore who we need to send food packages to, make sure they get the test results. What's sort of like the chain of events that you sort of go through in terms of getting everyone safe and sorted?
Yeah, so the prep sort of went right from the beginning when the church community had made the decision to do the pop-up testing station. South Seas then responded to work with some of our staff on the Cause Collective to be able to set up the testing station really quickly at the Manukau Magpies Rugby League club. And then, working through that, we were able to then get the staff and the testing and also the food in terms of being able to provide every family with some food and support and care packs, sanitizers and face masks and gloves and that. So 8:30, one of the things I will say is the leader of the church and his wife, they both pulled up, after they got tested. And he just stood next to his car from 8:30 to 4:30, just waving to the church, because he wanted them to see that he's thinking of them, but also that he's there with them, not only in spirit, but also standing there. So I was quite taken back and also seeing in terms of his inspirational leadership to say, listen, I need to be here. As long as they see me, then they can take heart from the fact that he was there. And I thought it was quite inspiring because he was really wanting to lead from the front. They didn't sort of cause the, in terms of not knowing that the Delta variant was in their community, but he really wanted to be at the front of the solution and being able to offer reassurance to his church community, because not only was he holding the burden of, the church being named and everything, but also he was feeling for his church community. And he was just, it was a very, very kind of, what I'd say, a humbling experience to watch someone like our Reverend Ferretti and also his wife, Rebecca, to stand there from 8:30 to 4:30, just being able to acknowledge and wave as people came through to get tested.
That is inspirational. I can't imagine what it'd be like to look up every now and then and probably see their smile and their wave. It would be really reassuring. And as you say, I'm sort of feeling a bit of a flush of emotion right now. So I can't imagine what it'd be like to be actually in the heat of the moment, dealing with it, and with them looking at you and giving you a good wave. So if we look at some of the other aspects, some of the sad aspects, some of the commentary from different parts of, let's say, different parts of New Zealand or different people, but you certainly got a bit of a hard time unfairly at the beginning. How's that going? How is it? Is it sort of stopped now? And how's the community feeling, and how are you bringing them together to make sure they're feeling okay?
Yeah, very early on, that whole narrative of the church being uncooperative and non-responsive kind of created some real unfair criticism of the church. And at first, being able to talk to Rebecca and also Ferretti, they were quite overwhelmed and distressed about the misinformation that was being put out in media, but also some people fueling that narrative. And so for them, it was important for us to be able to carry through with what we had done. And so, the racist comments didn't help. And also the reinforcing stereotypes through what the media were trying to portray at first just was very hard for us. And so one of the things I really felt was important for us was to, kind of be able to respond to that. And one of the things that the Whalatua had spoken about really early on was how do you, respond to the people with all these, sort of issues around racism. She said, God bless you. And, that shows the strength of their faith, but also shows the strength and the resilience that the church community held through, even through that sort of time of having those racist comments and just condemnation from what I'd say is a minority in Aotearoa. They stood strong and they showed and were able to practice their faith and say that we will forgive them. Even like in my own heart, I was feeling quite discouraged and working through that. So it doesn't help, but also it does bring up the sort of ugliness of some sorts of different parts of society. But the majority of our community and even Aotearoa, we're very supportive of them once they were able to be very clear about what they had done and what they were doing.
It is a minority, absolutely, and it is still very sad to see. And I just want to make comment to anyone out there who, because I'm pretty sure that the comments came from Pākehā. Being Pākehā, yes, can understand conceptually what racism's like, but my wife happens to be Māori, and it wasn't until I experienced racism with her that it hit me in the heart like you wouldn't believe. And I also reacted to it. So for me, I really feel bad about the experiences that you and your community have gone through. And I can only imagine how much it takes to respond with God bless you, rather than some of the things that I would like to say and have said in the past. But I think the interesting thing is that when I have sat with people that have said racist comments and turned around and highlighted to them what they've done, they have been somewhat shocked themselves that they hadn't realised, and it was quite disappointing. But won't go on about that. I just wanted to share that. Yeah, I can imagine how hard it is, and it hits me being Pākehā, so I can't imagine what it'd be like to actually, be about me. One day it might happen to me, but congratulations and thank you for taking it so well and returning such kindness with a comment like "God bless you." That does show. I don't know if there's a word in Samoan, but that's the same as mana. But it clearly shows the mana of the people and your community. So congratulations.
It shows, that your true character will be tested. And I got to say, I was pretty rocked with it. I was quite angry about it. And it was the comments of Whantua Rebecca that it sort of really showed the resilience of the church community, but also being able to practice their faith and say that, even if we're going to be condemned in public and ridiculed and racist comments are made, we're going to stand strong in terms of the faith. So she was stronger than I was at the time, but it also just showed the importance of holding strong to your faith.
Yes. Well, forgiveness is I guess, quite an element of faith, and I'm not unaccustomed to faith. One of my favourite psalms is Romans 15:13. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace. So I hope that's a fitting one for today's discussion. So in terms of the next piece, I guess another area that's quite sensitive is with such a large cluster, how is everyone doing? Obviously, there'll be some that are in hospital. How's it all going for everybody?
Yeah, it's a really sort of tough week for a lot of people because we do have people in hospital and ICU, and we're seeing some good news stories where people have come out of ICU and gone back to the wards, and so we're continually praying for the church community and those that are in there, and we're also seeing people come out of MIQ, and then also yesterday we had the people that had tested negative within their families, and then also went along to the Pacific Vaccination Centre at MIT, run by South Seas, and we had around about 70 to 80 people get vaccinated yesterday.
Yeah, well, that's great. Sorry, I was just trying to get a comment up on screen from one of the people while I was listening to that. But it's great to hear that the people are coming out of ICU and get back into the wards as they are starting to recover. That's a really good sign, and grateful to hear positive news on that one. Just thinking about coming up 10:30. You are a busy man with what you're doing, so I don't want to take all your day. So I just asked you to start thinking about closing remarks in terms of what you might like to share with everybody out there across New Zealand, potentially from different places around the world as well. The message you'd like to share with them with regards to everything that's happening within your community and what the community is doing to pull together and work around solving this pretty monumental health challenge for the people.
Yeah, well, one thing I would say is that whole thing about standing strong to your principles and your faith. And one of the things that we've seen with this church community is the whole being able to work through galvanise as a church, but even being able to practice their faith. And through the hard times, they have been tested, and true character is shown when things happen within their community. So one thing I will say is we will continue to help and support our church community, but also we're seeing a lot of these sort of work from people like South Seas and the Cause Collective, where it's about getting around the community to create the system rather than being pushed down to community. And one of the discussions we should have around post lockdown is how can we better respond to community needs driven by sort of community organisations, because there does seem to be sort of, and intentionally or unintentionally, there does seem to be sometimes bottlenecks within the bureaucracy, and being able to respond to real-time issues and insights. We need to be able to work through that, and how quickly we're able to get alongside the church community. South Seas being able to respond, work with us, then initially finding ways to try and to reassure them and see how we can kind of work through. So I just keep kind of encouraging people to just make sure you're there to support. Also thank some of our families and friends. I had some family friends from the school that my son goes to. They're European dads. They just wanted to get food and take it to the food hub and be able to support. Had the Jewish community wanted to do donations for some. So we've got all these people, which shows the best of our nation. It shows the best of who we are, and and it's making sure that we're able to care for each other and acknowledge the government for what they're saying in terms of it's not only about the operational parts, but it's also about how do we treat each other and how do we care for each other at really times of hardship. So thanks for the opportunity, Ryan. And I really also appreciate the fact that we can have these conversations to just try and give insights to our people and for them to know that we are there for them, and also working with Reverend Ferretti, Tolefor, and also Rebecca with our church community to say, listen, we want to eliminate COVID and we want to stand together with Aotearoa. So, malo pito, ngā mihi te kia koutou mo tō koutou tautoko, kia mātou Cause Collective in South Seas, and also our church community. Mate lava.
Well, thank you very much. And before we let you go, I just thought, yes, if people want to supply anything to you in terms of sending food parcels or making donations, donations probably is the easy one. Is there a link that we can put up to the social media at some point later on, or what's the best way for people to be able to help and support in any way that they might be able to?
Yeah, so financial support, what we're saying is that the church have got their own sort of crisis management fund that is helping their church, and then also in terms of food, and that we're encouraging people to go to South Seas as they are getting daily support for our church families and being able to work through and support them through that. So I'll be able to provide a bank account from the church, and they'll in terms of financial assistance. But I really appreciate everyone's sort of support, whether it be through food and also financial support, but also just encourage people to keep praying for the church. They're not out of the woods at the stage, and it's still pretty tough for a lot of our families that are going through this. Really appreciate it.
Cool. Well, we'll wrap it up there and let you get back to it. I just want to say a huge heartfelt thank you for coming on and sharing what's happening in the situation. A lot of misinformation, a lot of news stories and bits and pieces. So it's really great to be able to have you on for half an hour to share with people exactly everything that you're doing. And it just sounds so amazing how the communities come together, how you're all working together, and the support that's coming in. So if anyone out there would like to support, we will get the bank account and any links from Jerome and put them into all the socials so you can. And we wish you and the team and the community all the best for a full recovery. Hopefully that's how it rolls. And we'll get you back to looking after the people from now on. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Really appreciate it. Cheers.